I'll start with Kimberly. Kimberly Reiter is here with us tonight. She's been working at Cook County Library in Gainesville since 2006. She graduated in 2020 with a Master of Science in Library Science and graduate academic certificates in Advanced Management in Libraries and Information Agencies and Youth Services in Libraries and Information Agencies. That's a lot. Currently, she's the Associate Director and Children's Class Coordinator for the library, where she takes care of daily and statistical reports, cataloging and processing of materials, and children's programming. She also teaches preschool children's class weekly, art, and STEM for kids and tweens, and manages many outreach programs to local schools. Sounds like a busy job, Kimberly. We welcome you to the C.O.D.E series event. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And then let me introduce you to Cynthia. Maybe you know her, some of you. Cynthia Arvizu is the president of the Library and Information Sciences Student Association, which is also called LISA. She's expected to graduate in spring 2023. Congratulations, that's coming up soon, with her Master of Library Science degree in Youth Librarianship and Graduate Academic Certificate in Advanced Management in Libraries and Information Agencies. Her career in social work for the past 12 years has prepared her for public service in libraries, and she tells me she's still working as a social worker right now. And she looks forward to working with youth in libraries and eventually becoming a director for a public library system to ensure services are provided for the community at large. And we welcome you, Cynthia. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Oh, great.
So with no further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Cynthia. I'm going to turn off my camera and turn off my mic so that you guys can take the floor. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, Kimberly, for being here today. So we'll go ahead and get started. So obviously, we know there are many paths that a librarian can take, but you chose youth services. At what specific point did you come to understand that you wanted to be a children's librarian, or was it more of an evolution? What made this path clear to you?
It was definitely an evolution. So when I started at the library, I was working the circulation desk. And even in high school, I knew I wanted to go to school to be a teacher. Well, the ladies at the library, they knew I wanted to do that, but they always told me, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You should go to school and come back and do our children's programming. And I told them that was never going to happen. So I finished my undergrad. I got my elementary education degree, and now I'm at the library doing the children's programming. So it kind of it happened. It definitely was not the original plan.
So we do have that, you plan to be a teacher, you student taught in Gainesville ISD. What caused you to make that choice? Do you have any regrets? Do you feel like it was maybe the right path all along?
I think it was meant to happen. So when I graduated in 2011, a lot of the schools were having huge budget cuts. They were having hiring freezes for teachers. I applied to places and, nothing really ever happened. And then in July, I graduated in May, and in July, I was offered a full-time job at the library. It wasn't doing the children's programming. It was full-time at the front desk and shelving. And I went ahead and took it. And I'm glad I did. I didn't start out with the kids, but gradually I got to where I am now. And I'm teaching every day something. I'm still with kids, but I'm not in the classroom all day long. And I feel like it works better for my family to be not with kids all day long. And then when I get home too. So yeah, I'm happy where I am. So.
Okay. And so you've been at Cook County Library for almost 17 years. Have you ever thought about leaving and moving on to an even bigger public library or a different kind of library? What's kept you there?
I really like serving the community that we live in. It's where I grew up. So I like being able to give back. And I would maybe consider going to a bigger library in the future. Right now, it would be a 40-minute drive at least to go somewhere else. And so it doesn't really work with my schedule. But the main thing is I like serving the community where I grew up, and I know what they need, and I know how I can help them. And I feel like I'm accomplishing what I want to do where I am. So.
Nice. And so you were already working at the library when you decided to go back to school and get your master's in library science. What made you feel this was necessary, and what were your goals when you started the program? Were you able to meet them?
So I always wanted to go back to grad school. Even when I was planning to teach, I thought, in the future I could go to grad school and be a school librarian. That was an original goal of mine. And I decided that at the time I went back, it was a good opportunity for me to further educate myself on what I was doing, still getting that master's degree. And it has really tremendously, like, I don't want to say I know everything in libraries, and I didn't then either. So it's been great to learn the why of why we do things, and to get just more knowledge. And I've used a lot of the information to not only to help me, but to also help our staff understand why things are done, because there's only a small number of us who have a master's degree or an MLS. And so it helps me to help them understand, because I started not having the background knowledge. And so it helps me kind of break it down.
Okay. So in the College of Information's library science program, you focused on youth services and advanced management. Why did you choose these two academic certificates? And can you give some specific ways in which that coursework has been helpful in your job?
I chose those two because I felt like they fit what I was doing currently and in the future. I don't remember what some of the other options were, but I wouldn't have picked something in research, because that's not something that I really want to do. I mean, we all have to research some, but I don't want to focus on that. So it was the children's, or what was it? The children's stuff is more what I'm doing now, and the advanced management, I do some of, but it'll also help me in the future with advancement in my career. And I think the coursework that's been the most helpful was probably, I don't know. I think all of it's really helped, but so the storytelling really helped me. That class I took the last semester, so it was spring of 2020, or maybe it was fall of 2019. But either way, we had to record ourselves for that. And it unexpectedly prepared me for 2020 when we started recording all of our programming. I did all of our story times on Facebook Live. And so, whether I knew it or not, that class was preparing me to be able to go live and not really be nervous about it. So.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that definitely prepared you for then. I know that was a different time for everyone. We've all kind of gotten used to it a bit now, but definitely new then. So what advice would you give to a student just starting the library science program about how to match the program to their career goals?
I guess it would depend. So if you know where you want to focus your library career, then definitely take classes that will feed that and help you with where you want to go. If you don't know, you just want to be in libraries, but you don't know if you want to be in a school library or a public library, academic, then just start with your basic core classes. Maybe something in there will help you kind of determine a path and communicate with your classmates. I know, ask them, what are you doing and why? You might get some ideas of something that you never even thought of, or even your professors. What is something where should I focus? These are my likes. This is what I like to do. And I know I was surprised in some of the classes I took. Some people at the very beginning didn't have a focus. And I was like, wow, just to myself thinking, like, I don't know, to me, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I wasn't sure. I don't know. The other thing is, even if you know what you want to do, and if you have an empty class to take something not directly focusing on your career, still in libraries, but take an elective that's different, learn something new and something out of the box that you didn't really plan on taking, if you can make it work, just so you have a little bit of knowledge somewhere else. Would be fun. So
that sounds like great advice. So I know that you manage the preschool story time at the library. What have been your biggest challenges in doing that?
I have a lot of challenges with that sometimes, like they vary. So the preschool story times I've been doing that part about 10 or 11 years. And it's definitely evolved since I've started doing it. Sometimes my challenges are certain children who are very active and they're not there to listen to a story. One of my biggest challenges lately in the last year has been parents talking. So you have to learn how to address that. And I'm still learning how to address that. But I have different strategies I use. And we've also been displaced from our meeting room lately. It is under construction. And so that is our normal space for story time. So I've had to be very, very fluid with that. And so I moved it into the children's area with the books, and it was working great. And then the library flooded in that area. So we had to move story time across the library into the adult section. And the kids didn't really care. They're still coming, they still love it. And I've kept the routine the same. And so it didn't seem to matter to them. They don't care. I'll be happy to be back into our normal room, but until then, we're still having our weekly story times, and we're still learning, and we're still singing.
Yeah.
And
Kids can be very resilient. So
yes.
What have been your biggest rewards doing the preschool story time?
I think one instance, I had this little girl, and she came in with her grandmother every week. She was very shy. She reminded me of myself when I was little. I'm still a pretty quiet person, except for during story time. But she clung to her grandma. She never really participated at first. She would even just cry just being there because she was very, very shy. Well, after maybe 2 years of coming weekly, she started preschool, and her grandmother came in after she started preschool and told me how thankful she was for the story times, because she said she transitioned so well, and she felt like her experience with me at the library helped her with her preschool path. So that was for me very rewarding, and I felt like, oh wow, I'm doing something good.
Yeah, that's great. In general, what topics do you find most popular with preschoolers? How do you keep them engaged?
Oh, well, if you want to talk about topics, they definitely love dinosaurs every time. Like, I could read about dinosaurs every week and they would be happy. But I don't read about dinosaurs every week. So I have a routine that I follow every week. I start with a Hello Friends song, and I learned this during COVID from a woman who did it on Zoom or a Facebook Live or something. And I do it in sign language. So they are learning sign language at the very beginning. They learn how to say hello and they say friends in sign language, and it's fun. And I've had a couple of families who come in with deaf children, and they're appreciative of just being acknowledged and knowing that their kids are gonna have something they're familiar with, that they may not always, have that connection. So I start with that song, and then I have another song about animal noises, because kids love to make animal noises. And then with the group I have right now, they're very young. Like, most of them are toddlers, maybe 2, 3. The older ones are so welcome, but I just don't have as many right now. And so I don't get to read more than 2 books in the story time. I also include action rhymes, and I'll do either scarves that they get to wave around, or I do rhythm sticks, or I do jingle bells. I do one of those 3 each week. So I have certain activities that I do with each one of those. And then I usually will do some kind of like dance song, like the Hokey Pokey or a freeze dance. Right now, their favorite is a freeze dance. If I don't do a freeze dance, they're going to be upset with me and they're going to ask about it. And then we have a craft at the end. But I try to incorporate all of those things each week. The repetition helps them learn. I have the color song they also love. We have flashcards, they look at the colors, and I have a song that I sing with them. And if they're wearing that color, pink, then they get to stand up and they get to shout hooray. And even the little ones get into that really quickly.
Okay. So besides like story time, maybe what are some of the programs you've developed for children at the library?
So when I started, that was the only children's program we had other than like summer reading. So in the time that I've been there, we created a 1,000 books before kindergarten program. And so we have seen this at other libraries, and we thought, oh, that's a great idea. But we still had to develop all of the process for our library. And how it works is the parent signs them up and they read 100 books with their child. After each 100 books, then they get a prize, and they get to put a little flower in their garden. In our meeting room, we have a big bulletin board, and they get to keep their garden. And in the end, if they complete it, then they'll have read 1,000 books, and they'll have 10 flowers in their garden. And then they get a book at the end as their prize. But the only stipulation on that is they have to read, or they can't continue once they enter kindergarten. It's, it ends once they enter kindergarten, but it's so exciting for them to get to come in and get their prize. And 1,000 books seems like a lot, but it's not. Even if they have a year to do it and their parent reads them on average 3 books a day, then they're really increasing their literacy and what they're learning.
Mm-hmm. So with that,
actually, you know what? I didn't finish your question. I have some more programs. Sorry. Okay, so we did the 1,000 books, and then we did an art class. So we have 2 different age groups, and we do like ages 5 to 7 during the summer, and then 6 to 12 or 8 to 12, depending on which time of the year it is. And we just, it's like a painting with a twist kind of thing. You know, I show them how to paint something and they follow along. That has been very popular. It always fills up. And then our STEM class, we have received grants to buy little, you know, robotics things or coding, and we learn just science topics. Sometimes we have a challenge that they have to build something, but that's also really popular.
Oh, nice.
I think that's it.
So have there, like, I guess out of those programs, which one's been you feel like your biggest success, and or have there been other programs that maybe y'all started to try and maybe it didn't work out so well, but you know, how did you learn from that?
We haven't had any that we've started and then discontinued, but I will say that even with those programs that we have, STEM particularly, sometimes I'll have a lesson and I'll walk out of there and be like, I'm never doing that lesson again, because it just didn't, the kids weren't receptive to it, or the technology we had didn't work correctly. But I usually take from it, and you know, sometimes I actually do that lesson again because I come up with a great idea that would have fixed it and made it better. So it's definitely a learning curve. And even with the story times, I'm sometimes like, oh, I don't know what happened today. The kids were crazy. They weren't listening, or, you know, whatever. But you just learn to adapt and you make it work.
Yeah, that sounds like a good lesson there, is being able to adapt for sure. So can you describe your public library's involvement with the local school district? Do y'all work a lot together? How do you strengthen that relationship, or are there any pitfalls you know that may need to be avoided in trying to build that relationship?
So our library is unique in that we are a county library, and in our county library, we actually have 7 or 8 school districts. So we, to some extent, work with each one of them. Some districts we do more than others, but we do a variety of things. With almost all of them, they submit artwork to us, and we have like, we call it our artwork display. But it's like a little mini art show that when they're in kindergarten, their class will have their artwork be up at the library, and it brings the families in so that they can see what's up on the artwork display. And maybe that family hasn't been to our library, so that's a good way to get them there for the first time, in a friendly, exciting way, because their kid has artwork up. So that we do with almost all of them. We also do parents' nights. I do a STEM lesson with the GT classes at one of the schools. And I think my biggest thing is to avoid pitfalls. You need to just keep the communication open, especially when there is a change in staff at the school, because administration changes, teachers change. So make sure that you're introducing yourself and you're communicating and letting the new staff know what you've done in the past, and just offer your services and make sure that they know that you would like to continue the relationship that you had in the past.
Nice. Okay. So what advice would you give a student like myself who's graduating this semester, wants to find a job in youth library services? Not in this.
I would say be open to other positions in the library. Maybe not something that's completely, like, obviously not, like, if you really want to be in youth services, then like a research library is probably not going to have anything of your interest. But like if you start at a front desk position, then let them know that, hey, if you need help with a story time or you need me to fill in, I'm happy to help you. Or even if you don't start working at a library, see if they want to take a volunteer, tell them, hey, I'd love to help you with a story time or help you cut out or whatever, because I have staff do a lot of my cutting for me. It's a lot of prep work, just like a teacher. So yeah, just be open to other positions and just know that you can move into different things and eventually get to where you want to be. And you may even really love the front desk. I miss the front desk sometimes, not all the time, but I did enjoy my time there.
And so I know you're also the associate director. So what has been your favorite part about being the library associate director?
I think for me, I like having the answers. I've been there long enough that I've worked in almost every position. And so if somebody has a question, they come to me and I can help them. I can answer their question on how to do something or why we do something. Yeah, I like helping the rest of the staff with what they're doing and helping to guide them in, and I definitely don't ever get bored. I like that about it because I do such a broad variety of things that yeah.
Okay. What parts of that job has presented the biggest challenges?
There's always challenges, I think. They're always different. So I think just trying to keep I'm not sure how I was going to answer this question.
Well, I know you mentioned earlier there was a flooding, like as the associate director, did you have to help Aiden? Okay, let's figure this out.
Yes. So that was a very unfortunate event. So the director and I had to go in, and we're still trying to replace books, but we had to go in and take the stuff off the shelf that was damaged, and we had to figure out, okay, so how are we going to keep track of this so we can replace them, and communicating with the governing board about the process of replacing them, because we can't just order new books, and there's a process for all of it. And so it was a really sad challenge, actually, because so many of those books now we can't even replace because they're out of print. So it will be a good collection development challenge for us to replace things that we can't replace with something else that's equivalent or better. So
yeah. Are there I guess in regards that, like you mentioned, the governing board and everything like that, how do you recommend like working with them? Like if I worked for the city of Dallas with the Dallas Public Library, like how do you, as the associate director, work alongside, I guess, in your case, I guess the county?
Yeah, so since we're a county library, we answer to the Cook County Commissioner's Court. And I think it's very important to let them know what you do. And because a lot of them aren't library users. And so let them know, hey, we actually send them a report every month and let them know some of our statistics. as far as what was checked out this month, how many people use the computers, or hey, we started this new program and it was really a big hit. Just, I don't know, just have open communication with them about how important your services are to the community. That way, because even if they don't use you, they need to understand that there's people in your town or your city or your county who rely on you for things. So we're not just books. That's something that they don't all understand. Even people who interview for jobs with us, like sometimes they don't understand the library is not just about reading books anymore. We do all kinds of things.
So, I know, I guess you are also involved in training and mentoring new employees at the library. Can you explain how you accomplish this?
I like training people. I like, one thing I do is I like to give them, I guess it depends because I train different positions. But like if I'm training somebody at the front desk, I like to kind of give them some insight to like some problem areas that could come up, just so that they're aware or they aren't caught off guard. I mean, we all get caught off guard sometimes, but I just, I don't know, I just like to give them a heads up on, what a patron might say when you are getting them a library card, or what they might get upset about if they're on the computers. And then like if I'm training somebody in the back room to be doing cataloging or interlibrary loans, I am an instruction girl. I have written instructions on how to do almost everything. And I like to be able to give them the instructions on, hey, this is how you do this. I always walk them through it and I, make sure they know how, but I like for them to have the how-to behind it. That way, if I'm not there one day, they can, I feel confident being away and for them to be able to do their job without me if they need to. I don't know. Maybe that answered your question.
Yeah, it did. What types of qualities do you look for in new employees?
So for us, we, we're a small community and we don't always have someone with library experience who applies or interviews. And so we look for someone whose work experience can work for what the position that they're going to be in, like the front desk, for instance. If they have exceptional communication skills, customer service skills, organized, if you're all of that and you've never worked in a library, that's okay. And one thing we look for in an interview is, can you tell us how your experience at even Tom Thumb, how is that going to help you do the job that you've applied for? And one question that we sometimes ask, why do you want to work at the library? I hate the answer because I like books. Like, tell me more about the library. We know we have books. We all like books. So I love when people interview and tell us, an extraordinary reason why they want to work at the library, and that they can connect that the library is so much a part of the community and not just checking books out and that kind of thing. So I love when people who interview can make that connection.
Yeah. Okay. So I see that you're responsible also for at times cataloging library materials. Can you describe your process of cataloging? I know right now I myself am taking introduction to cataloging. Would you say it's important for one to ensure they partake in a cataloging course?
No.
Maybe even if they're not pursuing technical services?
I hated the cataloging course. Yeah, I hated that class so much. We do copy cataloging, so we are very rarely make an original record. So we use book systems and from Atrium, and we just, all we have to do is put in the ISBN and it pulls up most of a record, and we mainly just have to, catalog it to fit our library, make it a fiction or a kid's book or whatever. But we don't have to add all the subjects. We don't have to do all the mark stuff. We don't. And so it's really easy. It's if you're taking your cataloging class and you're hating it, don't let it discourage you from libraries, unless you want to be a cataloger and creating those records. So yeah, I don't have to do really hard cataloging at all.
Okay. And finally, it looks like Cook County Library really encourages continuing education, and that you do stay involved with the Texas Library Association. So I know the Department of Information Science is going to have a booth there at the upcoming conference. And we're also going to have our own alumni and friends reception there for UNT. What would you say are the benefits of staying connected to the department and college after graduating as an alum?
I think so continuing education is very important. I am going to be at TLA in April. I'm actually participating and I'll be speaking at one of the sessions, and it's just a way. So TLA, the conference, is a good way for everybody to keep up with what's going on currently in the library world, and it's always very helpful. Even it's only been 3 years since I graduated from UNT. And so much in the library world has changed. COVID changed a lot of things. There's a lot of talk about banned books, of course. That was a big thing last year. And it helps to stay on top of it and to know how other librarians are working through changes. And as far as UNT and being an alumni, I think events like this hopefully is helpful to y'all, and it's a nice networking way for me to give back and educate and hopefully help anyone who's looking at library careers.
Well, we're so glad that you are willing to do that. And I think that was your last question, right, Cynthia?
Yes.
All right, Cynthia, thank you so much for asking the questions. You did a great job. And, because you are in the program, you're able to ask some follow-up questions that I wouldn't have known how to ask. So I appreciate that. So I hope you'll stop by our booth, Kimberly, when you're at the TLA. And what topic are you presenting on?
I'm presenting, there's 3 of us working on this, and we are going to be talking about how public libraries can collaborate with school libraries, or how they can collaborate with college libraries. And it's just going to be kind of like a trio of, hey, this is what we've done and how we've helped other libraries or other schools.
Okay,
on
great.
different things.
Great.
So.
There are a couple questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one. It's going back to the topic of story times, which was a popular and very interesting. I enjoyed a lot of what you said about the story time at the library. Found myself laughing out loud a few times at some of your stories. But this Ashra asks, how long are your story times, and how many times do you do a story time each week?
Okay, so I want to say they last 30 to 45 minutes. That is not all structured, of course. So it starts, say we start at 10:30. I'm usually keeping them engaged until about 11, so about 30 minutes. And then after that is when they can work on their craft if they choose to stay to do that. At this age, they don't have more attention span than that. And even that 30 minutes is not all sitting there and reading, like I said earlier. It's definitely, it depends on your group. But we have story time once a week on Tuesdays. And we picked Tuesdays a long time ago based on some of the local preschools are only 3 days a week. And that was a day that they don't have preschool. So the stay-at-home moms can still bring their kids on that day. We did, in the last 2 or 3 months, I added a second story time on Tuesday because the first one was getting so full that I wanted to give the parents an option to come at a different time to try to make more room. Because I don't want to do signups for that class. We do signups for art and STEM, but for the story times, I want them to be able to come whenever they want to and not be like, oh, I didn't sign up this week. So
well, and with preschoolers, it often depends on their mood for the day, whether or not they're gonna,
Yes.
under that age, they may make it or they may not. So
we started doing a 10:30 in the morning and a 2:30 in the afternoon. And 2:30 is nap time for some kids, so that's not as well attended. But I still get a handful of kids who don't take an afternoon nap. And so it works better for them. Or maybe they were grumpy in the morning, and so they were just in a better mood in the afternoon. And they're identical, they're the same program, so they can pick whatever works for them.
that sounds great. When you were describing the activities that you do, I was thinking, oh, that must last 2 hours. But I guess
No,
a song is maybe 30 seconds, right?
right. And sometimes the song I do, like in between stories, if they're getting antsy, is just like, I sing it to the tune of If You're Happy and You Know It, but I say, if you're ready for a story, clap your hands. And that kind of gets their attention, like, oh, we need to start getting ready. And it's just a quick transition.
So cute. Okay, we have another question in the chat. Oh, thank you, Ashley, for your question. We have another question. This one's from Janine. She asks, how was participation and engagement impacted when you had to move Storytime online due to COVID?
So when it was online, the first week or two, it was very well attended, maybe not by kids, but by people, by viewers, because we were all just stuck to our screen. But we stayed online for a year before we had it in person again. And they weren't watching it. The kids were not watching it. And they're on their screens all the time. Watching me is not the same as in person for a 3-year-old. So it was very discouraging because I really wanted to be there in person with them, but the engagement isn't the same. And so, they didn't really watch.
So through Facebook Live, it was a one-way, it wasn't interactive, right? It was just you projecting out and it wasn't like a Zoom class where they could have participated.
Correct, yeah. And
they might have been participating, but you couldn't see them, right?
Right. And a lot of libraries did do it on Zoom, but we didn't. We did Facebook Live.
And do you know why you made that decision or why the library made that decision?
I think we started it on Facebook Live because it was a very quick decision at first to be like, oh, let's just do this. And we just never transitioned it over to Zoom. So we started it that way and we just continued it. We never changed it. So
okay. We have another question from Georgia. She asks, how many books does your library typically catalog in a year? And how do you approach weeding projects?
Oh, as far as how many we catalog in a year, I want to say off the top of my head, on average, maybe 300 a month, give or take. And it depends on like what's published that year or that month or whatever. As far as weeding, we actually just did a bunch of that last week. We are closed for inventory. So the standards we go by I did the kids nonfiction and some of the kids picture books. So when I start by looking at a section, and if something on that shelf looks old, then I'm going to look at it and I look at the history. If it hasn't been checked out more than 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years, then we're not going to keep it. Unless it is an award winner of some kind, or something like that, then we'll keep it, of course. All the Texas Bluebonnet books that are on those lists, we keep those. We keep the Caldicots. But yeah, I start by visually looking at, are any of these really hideous books? And those go. And then sometimes it's a good opportunity to maybe replace an old book that is outdated, but is something you really need in your collection. Like, I wouldn't get rid of all of the counting books just because they were ugly without putting some new counting books in.
Mm-hmm. So you replace them rather than weed them out.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Georgia. And then Cynthia, you read my mind. I was thinking this question also. What was your library's experience with banned book challenges that were occurring throughout the state last year? You kind of touched on that a little bit. I wonder if you feel comfortable going into it at all.
Yeah, so we actually have not had any written complaints about any of the books that we have. We do have a policy on how to handle it if it should happen. But we, like I said, we haven't had anyone try to make us remove anything.
Wow, you very lucky, I think. I have other librarian friends who've, they're up to here with the difficulty of it. And they're in the school system, so.
Yeah, we did have somebody try to debate us on Facebook during Banned Books Week. We used a lot of the national campaign, and those books upset some people on Facebook. And I was like, why are you celebrating this? And they weren't very nice about it, but that was really the extent that we had.
And probably that was such a wider audience. It wasn't even your community members that were.
No, it wasn't anyone who even lives in our county. So
Exactly. Okay. So I'm good. I do have a question for you. And then while I'm asking my question, this is your last chance to get a question in the chat to the registrants. So if you want to put a question in the chat, you've done a lot of different things at the library, right? Like you said, you've held almost every position inside the public library. And I wondered, of course, instead of just saying like what you're doing right now is your favorite, out of all those positions you've held, if you had to pick one and do it for the rest of your life, your career, which one was your favorite and why? You have to choose.
If I had to choose just one part of it, it would be the children's class things, the story times and the art and the STEM. But the good thing, to go beyond just that answer is, since I'm in such a small library, I still get to do all of it. Mm-hmm. I still get to be at the front desk, and I still get to go shelve books sometimes. But if I had to limit myself to only one thing, it would be the kids programming.
So that brings up a good point, because you're in such a small library and you probably have a smaller staff, that, if somebody's choosing a career path where they want to be able to do a lot of different things inside the library, that might be a smart option, right?
Yes.
Is going to like a county public library or
even a city library in a smaller town where you have less staff. Because if you're in a huge public library where you're hired to be their cataloger, that's all you're going to do. You're not really, you won't have as many opportunities to do other things.
Mm-hmm. And we know you wouldn't like that, being a cataloger.
No. I've done.
Somebody has to do it, Kimberly.
I know, but at our library, we just do copy cataloging, and it's anybody can learn it. I don't mind doing that, but not all day long.
So when I was growing up there, I lived right by a city library. It was called South Branch Library. And I used to spend hours and hours, I could just walk over from my house. So I spent hours and hours and hours in that library. And I think if you were interviewing me, I would say exactly what you said you hate. I would say it because I love books. That's why I'm here interviewing. So can you go a little bit more into why that answer to that question seems so wrong to you? Because to me, it's, I know we all love books, but you just want them to be more imaginative, or?
Well, I think it's just that in an interview, I want them to let me know that they understand that the library is not just about reading. And I don't want them to come in thinking that they're going to read books all day.
I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to come here and read books. That's not your job.
Right. Yeah, you're going to be, if you're at the front desk, you're going to be handling upset patrons, or you're going to be helping them print because they don't know how to print anything. Or, yeah, you're not just going to be reading books.
Okay. Well, I see that nobody has added a question to the chat. Cynthia, do you have any last minute questions? Or Kimberly, is there anything we haven't asked you that you'd like to share about your job or advice you'd like to give to students? I know you've already given some advice, but Cynthia, did you have anything before we have Kimberly speak?
Yeah, so given that my background right now has been in social work, and I know when I attended the PLA conference last year, they were talking a lot about social work coming into public libraries. Have y'all had any experience with that at Cook County?
We have not had anyone on staff with a social work background, but we have discussed how helpful it would be. If I were to go back to school for something, I would get a master's in social work, because not so I would leave, but because it would help me in my job every day. We have so many people who need help and don't know how to get help with whatever it is. So you will be a great asset to a public library, definitely. I think, yeah, they go hand in hand.
Are you hiring?
Not at the moment.
In May? Okay. And so thank you, Cynthia, for your last question. That was a great question. And it's good to hear that your skills will be valued even in your next career. And Kimberly, is there anything else you wanted to share before we close up for tonight?
I don't think so, but thank you all for joining us.
Yes. Thank you all for coming to meet Kimberly and Cynthia and listen to our interview. We've had a great talk. I really enjoyed it very much.